by machine. Like, but part of that is by hand. Like,
Yeah.
look at it, it's combination of machine and hand.
Yeah. So
But
these are
these are
hand
hands.
hand done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what she does, like most of these hand ones, she doesn't do them. She just put the dressing together, like the pieces. Then give it somebody do the hand one and the other part of it.
So when she comes and is making them here for African people, I can do the hand stuff. So we could have a partnership. It would be so that it's just an example of some of the sharing that has happened in our family that I never could have dreamed possible if we hadn't done this. And I'm sure that if we were welcoming another asylum seeker, we would learn the same kind of, you know, ethnic food, different kinds of dress, different traditions, different ways of celebrating holidays. And that's something that I think more than anything, Midvale could excel at and do a good job at. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So to start thinking about the nitty gritty a little bit, the first thing I think we have to do once we know we're potentially
Could everybody mute their system, please?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the 1,200 in a sense is not enough money necessarily.
Yeah.
I think we really need to be conscious of that and be willing to go beyond that.
So we came up with that number through a number of methods, one of which was me calling a bunch of landlords in the Midvale area. Especially, there are several apartments on Schrader Road that rent to low-income people. And they were advertising 1 and 2 bedroom apartments at Christmas time, which isn't very long ago, for $800 or $900 a month. So we upped it, knowing that that's not always going to be the case. But the only way that I know of, and I only know this from my kids because I haven't rented for how many years, is to look on Craigslist. And the major renting agencies post apartments on there and tell them when you're going to have them be available. So the 1,200 is a somewhat of a shot in the dark, but you know, the big thing is getting an apartment available. Yeah, right. Yeah. Like the one complex that I'm talking about, just kind of in that forested area right beyond where Michael's is on Schrader Road. So there are Midvale members who live there. And then, you know, it's not the most beautiful apartment complex, but you know, it's going to be what we can find, I'm afraid. The other place where there's a lot of availability was off of Rimrock Road, which I'm not very thrilled about. So if we can keep something more local to us, just because we know the area and the schools and the buses and that kind of thing, that's, I think, what we'll go for. Does anyone want to help with the apartment search? Everybody
can volunteer anytime. Doesn't necessarily have to be right now.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll see how that is. Bill and Judy Kessler said they would help, but right now they're in Mexico, so that doesn't really help us. And I don't think they'll be back before we want to get started. But we'll do it. We'll find something. and we'll keep the congregation posted. So as we need help with things, what do you think is the best way for us to communicate this to the congregation? We have used Sign Up Genius in the past, like for road that we published and said, here's what we're looking for. Sign up here. Is that something that people would be willing to do you think? Used to do it with Road Home. Yeah, Gail.
I think if, well, the way that I volunteered to help is to help furnish an apartment.
Yeah,
And I certainly can't furnish an apartment by myself, so I'm going to be asking for a lot of donations. And I think if we use Sign Up Genius plus uh, plus a phone number that people can call to say, I have a couch or I have a whatever, I think we need a combination of sign up venues. Because I don't think everybody's comfortable with Sign Up Genius. Some people would rather email, some people would rather make a phone call. So I think that we probably would use all of those
okay.
options.
Those are great suggestions. Yeah. Does the 1,200 include utilities? Well, here, let me look at my budget and see. It depends on the apartment, you know, how some of them include utilities and some don't. I know it didn't include internet because we built that in there. No, it includes utilities, so that might be even more of an issue depending on what. All the ones that I found that had openings did include utilities. So put that in your prayers. Georgia, did you have a question?
So is someone going to keep a list, start a list of everything we're going to need, and then where people could also see that? Because I'm assuming you're going to need linens and dishes and whatever. So has somebody compiled that list that we could see and then check off? Or I know that's a huge task probably. And I'm not volunteering, but
Can you give it back to Gail because she's in charge of this?
I was just going to suggest that, yeah, maybe we do need something like that because there's going to be lots of different jobs, including
Yeah.
transportation, whatever.
Yeah,
And if that could be available someplace, then people can volunteer based on that.
Yeah.
too. But Gail, go ahead.
I think what we need to do is find out the size of the family or the single person that's coming, the size of the apartment, the configuration of the apartment, and then we can start, then we will publish a list. But until we know who we're hosting and how much furniture we need, we can't really, I mean, I could start a preliminary list, but
yeah,
we just don't know yet.
yeah,
So,
that's right.
and I
Yeah.
welcome input, you know, I probably will do a list and then say, have I forgotten anything?
Yeah,
Ask for people to
okay,
input. Okay.
that sounds good. So our thing to do is find an apartment, furnish it, and work with the landlord to so that we have good relations and support for our guests. And one of the things that we proposed that I ran by several landlords when I was making these phone calls was, if I have a person or a couple people renting a 2-bedroom apartment or a 1-bedroom apartment, depending on how big we need, and the church pays for the apartment, and guarantees the rent for at least the first year. And then are you willing to help us transition the lease to the guest's name? So they start building their own rental credit and they start paying the rent with our assistance. And they all said, under those, with the backing of your church, absolutely. And it's wonderful that you're doing this because they so often get left holding a chunk of change. So they were all three of the organizations I talked to who have a lot of apartments were very amenable to that. So I think as long as we're good about doing that, we can make that happen. Greg's comment is saying, additionally, there's a possibility that a Midvale member / family could host an asylum seeker family. That is a possibility. That would be wonderful if somebody comes forward. Any takers? Yeah, Greg. Are you volunteering? You can turn yourself on and say yes, Greg.
Yeah, thank you. I think it really depends on the size of the family and if it's a single person or not. I just wanted to raise that possibility, understanding that it's out there. The other thing I'm wondering about, Toni, and this is something we hit up against and we were doing the Second Chance Apartment Project, was making sure the church, as a church entity, can sign a lease. I'm pretty sure we can, but it's a detail that we might want to just verify.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I talked to the landlords ahead of time, saying this is all still theoretically, but I think it's going to happen. They said that they could put the guest on the lease as long as we had some kind of agreement of financial backing with the church, which I think that would help with that, right? Yeah, okay. Anybody else? So if anybody thinks they might have a spare bedroom that somebody could stay in at least temporarily until we get the apartment rented and furnished, that would even be a big help. So think about that and let me know. My email is toni.swandby@gmail.com. And my phone number is 608. Are you on it, Nelson? Yeah. 206 2882. And really, you can call me about any of this anytime. Be great. Okay. So the next thing we should talk about is transportation. And I think Bianca's on the call. Bianca, can you unmute yourself and tell me if Nelson's on the phone? We'll see. She's on there. Not Nelson, Mats.
Hi, Toni.
Nope, here she comes.
Yeah, Mats is here.
Yeah, so Mats had tentatively, with a little arm twisting, agreed to look at the buses and helping the family negotiate bus transportation. Right, Mats?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't, I mean, I used to take the bus regularly to work. I honestly now haven't done it for quite a while.
Can you speak louder, Mats?
Yeah, I used to take the bus regularly to work. I honestly haven't done it recently because of the pandemic and combination of that and working from home be a big part. But I mean, I think I could. Yeah, I think I could still try to help with that. I think I have to figure out. I honestly don't even know right now, for example, if they have I hope
Okay.
they still have, yeah, sorry, I mean, we don't need to go into details, but we could, I think I could look into that. It might be good to have a second person as well, perhaps.
Okay, good.
Um,
So what Matt's was saying is he used to take the bus to work all the time before the pandemic. And then, with all the working from home, that hasn't been as much. And it would be helpful to have a second person doing this besides him. But
One more
that's
thing-
another thing that we really can't do ahead of time until we know where the apartment is. And we want to pick a place or a home or whatever close to bus lines if possible, to minimize the amount of riding that we are going to have to provide as the host congregation. And then and there is an allowance in the budget for bus passes to accomplish that. I don't know how many people have looked at the Madison bus. They have a program on the internet that actually is really slick. You say, here's where I am, here's where I want to go. And it tells you what bus, what route, what time, when the next bus is coming, all that kind of stuff. That means that the person, well, for any number of reasons, has to have access to the internet. And if we were, say, to get a mother and a child, and that child is going to school, again, access to the internet is really important in this day and age, especially during this pandemic. So I think we really, we built in an internet budget, and I think that's something really important. And then I think that kind of brings us, I'm going to jump off of transportation for a minute, but we have to really think about what languages are we willing to accept that we can work with for translation for things like this. So like if Mats was working with somebody from El Salvador, I think he has a unique Spanish speaking resource sitting right next to him this morning, right? So that's a possibility. Bianca, his wife, is fluent extremely,
Yeah,
and she's
I'll-
one of the
I'll-
people who has volunteered to help us with Spanish translation as need be. So so a lot of this stuff is preliminary, but we're thinking about it and kind of planning for what might happen. I'm kind of thinking that we could probably support another English-speaking African easily, right? We could support probably a Spanish-speaking family too, or person. I think there's numerous Spanish speakers in our congregation that I plan to reach out to and see if they could also help with translation as need be. So that's kind of the direction I'm thinking. Anybody else have any other thoughts along those lines?
Because there are no Swedish asylum seekers.
What about French? What?
Mostly people coming from Africa, I think they are just like, basically, they're just like three language. Either you're speaking French or English, or
Mhm.
either you're speaking Swahili,
Mhm.
people from the South, or maybe probably the Arabs, people coming from Morocco or
Yeah,
Algeria. I think that's the only language I know of. For me, I can speak English and French,
yeah.
fluent in English, but a little bit fair in French.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and Ngwa is asked to be included. We have volunteered, Mark and I, to be the mentors. And Ngwa says he wants to mentor as well. Do you want to tell them why you want to do this as a mentor?
The mentor would be the mentor. Somebody. to
Yeah,
do
there's
that
nothing really particular in it. I just love doing it.
Yeah,
You know,
person.
I just want to help somebody, I understand what I went through. I don't want anybody to have that kind of difficulties. I just want to make as easy as possible for them.
When you first told me you wanted to do this, you told me, just think how inspiring it would be if my mentor had gone through this themselves.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that is a good,
Yeah, I know, see me as an example. I think it gives them a little bit of relief and say I made it. So it's possible for them to make it this far.
yeah,
So not even talking, just seeing me, that this is me.
Yeah.
I'm a living proof testimony of this project.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so back to transportation. The other kinds of rides that we are going to need to provide that, yeah. Oh. Swanby is spelled with a D. And it's also all lowercase. Yeah, but I've had them be rejected because of that, so. And it's D as in dog, B as in boy, Y. That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we did put a phone in the budget because I can tell you that our experience with Ngwa, I would have been lost without his phone. It was a lifeline, speaking back to his family all the time, every day, as often as he could get through. So, yeah,
Yes, you can use Google Translate on a smartphone,
Yeah.
smartphone too.
and actually, that's a good segue, Mark. Why don't you talk a little bit about the kind of rides that Mark's going to talk about are the ones that are official rides to ICE check-ins and court hearings and that kind of stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah, so, obviously there's lots of local transportation needs that the family might need. Hopefully that pretty soon they'll be able to ride buses and get around locally and all that, depending on how it goes. But these are also people that are in the immigration process. And so this is a little bit of a tangent off the side, but I've been volunteering for this program. And so I want to give it a little bit of a commercial. But it does overlap with what we're doing. And so that's why we're going. And Toni asked me to talk about it. But this is a so-called Dame Sanctuary Coalition as a volunteer driver project. And I think Nels put it up here. I have it on the whiteboard, but the whiteboard's kind of covered. But anyway, this organization provides rides for people who don't have transportation to go to immigration centers, if you will. And typically the people that need these rides are referred by, the ones I've been involved with have been referred by the Community Immigration Law Center, which provides support. Also Jewish Social Services, which also provides support for immigrations. But places where these people need to go would be to U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services in Milwaukee. There's also one in Waukegan, which is very interesting. It's in a strip mall next to a Dunkin' Donuts. But and now just recently they've started to perhaps get some requests from Fort McCoy related to the Afghan people. So someone is interested in volunteering for that. Again, this overlaps a little bit with what we're talking about, but it's another volunteer opportunity. They need to go to these places for things they call biometric appointments. This is basically just getting your picture and your fingerprints taken and maybe some other statistics, but they last, the actual appointments are very short, but also potentially hearings in Chicago, at the Immigration Center in Chicago. the Chicago Immigration Court. We actually went there with Ngwa, although I haven't done one through the Dane Sanctuary yet. They've also expanded a little bit. Sometimes it's hospital appointments and a little bit more detail in a minute, but also some detention centers like Dodge County in June. This is where Ngwa was incarcerated. I've gone to Milwaukee. I've gone to Waukegan. I went to Chicago with Ngwa. Another one I did was I picked up a woman in Darlington, which is on the other side of Mineral Point, if you know where that is, drove her to UW Hospital for appointment, and then took her back afterwards. So that was kind of a long day. The other one I did was I picked up a fellow that had gotten out of detention at Dodge County Correctional Center, which is where Ngwa was, but that's in Juneau, and took him he was able to get out of detention because he had a job in Wisconsin Rapids. So I've done that too. So there's lots of different opportunities, but the people that are the immigrants that are using this program are from all over Central America, Africa. The various languages that they have been their native languages are Swahili, Kirundi, if you pronounce that right, Spanish. These are just ones I've dealt with, and some are English too. So to talk about that a little bit, I've used Google Translate with some of them. Sometimes they're just quiet the whole time. And sometimes if they're Spanish, I call up my daughters who are fluent in Spanish and they translate for me over the phone. So the point of that is there's just ways to get around the language barrier. So where this overlaps with what we're talking about here is that our family will also need to make these types of trips. And they're usually done with short notice. And well, there's some details about how the interaction goes with immigration services and potentially ICE. But there's two people that run this program, and their names are Dan Zimmerman, and his email is Zimmerman_Dan@hotmail.com, and Dorit Bergen, who is that's not quite spelled right. It's Eleanor, ELANOR 3560@att.net. And they provide training for the details of what it's like to go to these immigration centers and potentially dealing with ICE. And they're having another training session towards the end of January or maybe the beginning of February. So if you're interested in volunteering for this program, or more related to this, if you would like to provide transportation for our family, I'd really strongly recommend you go through their training, because they're very good with the details on how to interact with immigration people and what the driver's responsibility would be and that sort of thing. And so even if you go through the training, they put you on an emailing list, and then periodically they send a request for drivers, and you can either volunteer to do it or never volunteer. They're quite flexible with all that, but I think the training is really good. And so I just want to read quickly through an email that I got from them back at the beginning of December. This is called Volunteer Driver Program Update. And here are two updates. Because of COVID, again, this was December 1st, 2021. Because of COVID precautions and changes in policies with the Biden administration, we did not receive any requests for rides to the Chicago Immigration Court or the USCIS office until February of this year. This will be 2021. We have had 26 scheduled drives so far in 2021 with 7 canceled appointments. The frequency of requests has picked up in the last 2 months. In addition to the usual drives for biometric appointments, we've driven immigrants to hospital appointments, between detention centers, and to get their jail release papers. Local agencies continue to be very appreciative of our work. So that kind of describes what they're doing. Rabbi Bonnie, coordinator of the Dane Sanctuary Coalition, has received a heads up that some of the folks from Fort McCoy who will be arriving in Madison in the next weeks and months may need rides to USCIS offices to take care of their immigration requirements. So the pace of our requests may pick up. If you know of anyone who might be interested in becoming a driver for our project, Dan and I are happy to hold virtual training sessions. And I think that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but thank you.
I started that blood pressure med that makes you cough. And I got the cough. And I switched off the blood pressure med, but I still have the cough. So I apologize if I cough. I'm planning to sign up for that training that Mark just mentioned, coming up in a few weeks. And I have, when Ngwa had his first biometrics appointment, I drove him and I asked Dorit to send me their information, and I agree, it's really good. And there's a lot of information about just how to conduct yourself with an immigration official. When we went, they were really nice, you know, they're just regular people doing their jobs. But we've heard stories of that not being true. The immigration ride needs, like Mark said, they come by short notice. Even your court date was what I thought pretty short notice. It was like, what, 3 weeks? Yeah. And it's the check-ins, the ICE check-ins are at ICE's discretion. When they say, okay, you have to come check in, you have to come and check in. And it's kind of annoying, but that's the way it is. So if we have more than just Mark trained, it would be helpful.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is if you miss an appointment, then you're basically done. You're out of system.
You
I don't know if
cannot.
there's any flexibility or not, but basically you're out of system. Part of the trainings, they talk about what if, so we've been talking about US Citizen and Immigration Services, which is, I don't know how it's related to ICE, which is
Well, that's
it-
the court
Immigration and Customs or whatever.
enforcement.
But the ICE are the police, if you will, that go around looking for illegal people, the people undocumented, we'll use that word. And what part of the training is what would happen if an ICE person came to you and wanted to, do something with the person you're giving a drive to. So I don't want to go into the details, but they give a very good advice on how you would handle that.
So nothing in any, I went on the drive to Waukegan, one of the drives to Waukegan with Mark, and the biometrics appointment with Ngwa, there's nothing scary about them, nothing. And court was scary just because of what could have happened if the outcome hadn't been what we were praying for. But everybody was kind and helpful and all that kind of stuff. So it shouldn't scare you to undergo this training, but it's really helps people in a time of really important need. So if anyone wants to volunteer for that, please let us know or contact Dorit or Dan and sign up for the training. All right, we talked about language. One of the things that, depending on what the language is for the guest, is ESL training. How are we doing for time? Okay, yeah. The both sets of attorneys highly recommend using the what's it called? Literacy network training. It's free, and they provide it online and in person, and they do a really good job. And then for the family, if they want to learn English as a second language, that's a possibility down the line. You know, probably will make their employment road easier, that kind of thing. We don't necessarily believe that every immigrant who comes here has to learn our language. Some people do believe that, but it does make things easier. Right? It was easier for Ngwa that he came here as an English speaker, right? Yeah. So I think we've talked about what language we could handle. English, Spanish, and maybe French. Given the situation with Haiti, we may get some French speakers. We'll see. That's a possibility. Ngwa, do you want to talk about how you guys use WhatsApp on the internet and how you communicate with that? WhatsApp, does everybody know what it is? It's an app.
WhatsApp is just an app, just like Instagram, and it's just a communication app. You can do video calls and audio calls. You can type, you can send text, you can send everything. Most of those apps have been operated people living in Africa, or maybe Asia countries, or maybe in South America. Most of those people, they use the app. Like the app is really good, and you have back-to-back encryption, security, nothing, no hacking, nothing. You don't have all those things, so it's very good. You just install it, put your phone number, and you download it. That's all about it.
Yeah. So
Right.
did everybody get that? It's everybody. So you put it on your phone number. You sign up for the app. It downloads onto the phone. It's end-to-end encrypted, and you can do video calls. It's kind of like if you ever use FaceTime. You can send documents. You can send photos. You can share all kinds of stuff. We've talked to, group call. We talked to Aqua and Ann the other day in a group call.
And so one other point is that it's an app, right? An application, but it's a voice over internet. So it uses the internet, and so it's free. And so that many people use it all around the world. You know, if your student is semester abroad or something like that, many people use it. And the encryption part is important to some people, a lot of people, but anyway,
Yeah.
so that's what it is. So it's just something you can use on your phone for free.
Okay. So that's another reason to make sure that we have a good phone and access to the internet. All right. The next topic to talk about is shopping. Danielle Lawson has volunteered to be our food pantry expert to help the family with navigating all the different food pantries and food sources in Dane County, especially depending where they end up living. She used to work for Second Harvest. Now she works for Feeding America. She knows them all. She knows food sourcing from all over Wisconsin. So I think she's a great person to head this up and get people familiar with what resources they have close to them or on their bus line or whatever. Our asylum seekers will not have access to any government-sponsored programs like food stamps. You get none of that as an asylum seeker. Yeah, Mark?
I was just going to say at various times, and it's changed a little bit with the change in the administrations, but if you use public programs, if you will, like food stamps, that could potentially jeopardize your case for staying here in the future.
Yeah, especially in the previous administration. So, yep. When the family first comes, one of the training things that I did through the ELCA's Amparo program suggested you provide a culturally appropriate meal on their first day there. You know, I think I shared this with you guys on the last presentation. I tried. But then Ngwa cooked the meal and it was amazing. And if there's a way we can do that with our families, that would be great. Gail, do you remember when we had Road Home, how we would ask people, depending on who was in, who our guests were during the week, what food they wanted and did they want to cook? And they loved that. And they give us a list of what foods to bring and they would cook, and it was really cool.
What I remember about our first meeting with Ngwa is that we actually went to Perkins and
Yeah.
we ate and he didn't. So that wasn't exactly a culturally appropriate.
Yeah, right. It was a Mark Swanby appropriate meal, and we'll leave it at that. All right. But I think if we have ways with our guests to invite them to show us how they cook, what their traditional foods are, what they mean, all those kinds of things are really enriching experiences. It sure has been that way with our family. It's been really cool. I'm hoping we get to the point with our guests of being able to share meals together. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We have no idea what kind of faith basis our guests will have. We can and will invite them to worship with us if that's appropriate and not offensive. No, we'll just see, but we will have to figure out ways to get them here and get us there to welcome and share. So, have any new comments on the? No. Anybody else have any questions? Georgia.
Maybe this has already been done, but is there a place where those of us that aren't probably not going to help drive or whatever to donate money, funds? Is there a separate place for that on our website, your website or something, or just?
No, there isn't. And I appreciate that. And if people want to do that, like things like grocery cards, that kind of thing, we can put it on the website, and that's a great suggestion. I mean, you can always donate through Realm and just designate it for the asylum seeker, right? And people have been. Oh, sure. You just give it to, just give it to church.
Sure, just like normal, any other special
Put
donations.
it in the line, right?
You can,
Yeah.
or cash, sure.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, no.
the offering counters will accept any form of payment.
And they will get it to the right fund. Right, Mark? Yeah. All right.
Right.
Any other questions? You guys?
So Toni, kind of an odd question. What is your most immediate need at this point? Because it sounds like you're trying to put together a process so that you have the teams in place to do the different things that need to be done. But that's not likely to actually deal with a real person per se or family
Not yet.
until March.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do now between here and then?
We need to pray. And we need to show up however we are going to show up at our annual meeting and vote in favor of accepting the endowment committee's recommendation to fund this program.
I see I think it's from Bianca. Can you repeat how and where to donate? I would just say, we probably haven't talked with Amanda about this, but if you would like to donate, the easiest way right now is probably to write a check to the church and just designate it for the Asylum family. Would that, or Asylum?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if there's
Asylum project.
Asylum project, maybe that would be and then if later on, something gets put on the website, people can do that too. But just like any other donation, you can certainly write a check to Midvale and then they will keep track of it for this special purpose.
Good question. All of this stuff, as we develop this more, will be putting articles in the Moments and announcements with church on maybe handouts on the table on how this is coming together. Nancy?
To the endowment?
The
Did you
first,
say that?
no, I didn't. I think the total budget is $38,000 for the 2 years. And they've approved the first year because that's all they approve at a time.
So that's 19.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. I think that's it. So Nels said he's leaving the meeting on for a little bit so you can copy the chat if you want, for you Zoomers out there. Hopefully this was helpful to get more of a vision of how this might play out going forward. And thank you. We're not done yet.
It's working. So again, thank you guys so much for taking the lead on this. It is important for people to realize that this is something that the congregation will be voting on during the congregational meeting. One of our upcoming events for during the forums will be on February 6th, a preliminary budget, which will include all of these kinds of items. So you are certainly welcome to come and to learn more about that budget and where we're going to, the vision that the council has put together for us as we move forward. And again, thank you guys so much. You're welcome to come to the next presentation where you hear me babble a little bit about the economy and where things are at with regard to the pandemic and how it has fundamentally changed some of our economic structures that we have in our country. So hopefully that'll be of interest to folks. In the meantime, thank you guys. Please be safe. It's a delight to see you guys even through this medium. And, hi, and everyone take care.